The anchor leg of our trip down under was our final stop in New South Wales. We had 8 whole days to explore the Sydney area, the Blue Mountains, Jervis Bay, and many things in between. Our family of 6 took a huge trip down under, spanning about 6 weeks, and we went to 3 different countries: New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and Australia. We got to see so many amazing places on this journey. And if you haven't got a chance to see the other videos that I've made from our trip from New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, and other parts of Australia, then go check those out for some travel inspiration in those areas. So my goal in creating these videos is to obviously document our journey and share the beauty of the places around the world that we've been to, but also really to encourage others to follow in our footsteps. We have a family of 6. There's 4 kids ranging in ages from 1 to 11. And I know these types of trips are sometimes hard to bite off as a single traveler or just as a couple, but with a family of 6, it takes a little more planning, a little more coordination, but it's totally doable. And we've had some life-changing experiences from those trips, and we're already looking forward to the next adventures that are to come in the next couple of years. In this video, I want to focus on the time we spent in New South Wales, specifically the Sydney region and places within a few hours drive. So our original plan was to take the 8 days and try to hit as many places as we could. We were flying into Sydney, we were planning to drive to Melbourne and even down south of Melbourne to see the 12 Apostles, and then drive back up to Sydney to catch our flight and try to see as many spots as we could on the way. This is something that we ultimately decided against with the limited amount of time that we had. One thing I learned on our first cross-country US road trip is that while seeing many places is nice, if you cram too many in, you really don't get to see much of anything. You're just running back and forth all over the country. So with this amount of time, we opted to stay closer to Sydney and see multiple places there in the area and explore those places in a little more depth with a couple of days instead of just being rushed off to the next spot. So we had just spent 4 days exploring Cairns, and we flew Virgin Atlantic down from Cairns to Sydney. We landed that night, and we got through passport control and customs and all that kind of stuff and headed to pick up our rental car, and then hit the road and drove over to the Blue Mountains. We had a hotel booked in Katoomba for 3 nights at the Skyrider Motor Inn. And one thing I've mentioned before in previous videos, but down under it was really easy to find family rooms. We had multiple hotels and places that we stayed that had divided spaces for families. Not just normal suites, but just small rooms with multiple beds for bigger families. So it saved us a lot of money without having to book multiple hotel rooms. So this room in Katoomba only cost us about $150 a night. Katoomba was also a great home base for us to explore the Blue Mountain area. This was one of the high priority places that I was looking forward to going. So the Blue Mountains are a really easy drive over from Sydney, and they're a really popular area for people to visit. But I wanted to make sure to hit those places, but also see some of the lesser known and almost hidden places while we were there visiting. So I've been doing a lot of research on YouTube and Instagram and stuff to find some cool spots that were kind of off the beaten path. I'd seen quite a few images online over the last year of these amazing slot canyons. And it seemed that there were quite a few there in that Blue Mountain area, but most of them had like a high water level, and so you almost had to like wade or swim through some of the spots to get all the way through, which made it kind of inaccessible with a family with small kids. So I finally found this one called River Caves Canyon. So to begin with, it was about a 25-kilometer drive off the pavement on the dirt roads in a pretty remote area. So we hit the end of the road, which was actually the start of the trail. It was a pretty well-worn trail, but it wasn't super well marked. It was about a mile down the hill through some thicker brush to the entrance of the canyon.
A little bit slick.
Once we made our way down to the canyon, it opened up, and the best way I can describe it would be like walking into something that looked like it belonged in Jurassic Park.
This is awesome! And cold.
There was a small stream flowing through the huge lush ferns on the canyon floor. We took our lunch down there with us and found a spot on the beach on the side of the canyon to stop for lunch and have a picnic, and took about an hour or so just to kind of explore the curves of the canyon. Getting through this canyon, the water was lower, but it did have some spots that was pretty high on your legs. So what I ended up doing was carrying the smaller kids through, and the big kids were fine. They didn't get wet over their waist, and so it was not dangerously high, and it was not moving. It was still water. So I would just say be cautious and check the water levels around the area before you go and try this hike with younger kids.
How to get out?
How do you get out?
No telling.
So the hike back out was a little more strenuous. Getting out of the canyon, you had to hike back up this cliffside mostly. But once we got up to the top, it was about a mile through the dense eucalyptus forest. And actually, River Caves Canyon is right on the very edge inside of Wallamay National Park. This adventure to River Caves Canyon was really one of the highlights of our time in the Blue Mountains for me. All right, you did it, Kiri. How was it?
Good.
I love sharing our adventures here, and I'm going to keep making videos to hopefully help you find some inspiration. So to keep up with us, would you go hit the like button and be sure to subscribe to this channel to see more as we travel around the world with our family. After we got back to Katoomba from River Caves Canyon, we went to see probably the most iconic spot in New South Wales, the Three Sisters. While this spot is a very popular area with lots of sidewalks and viewpoints and people everywhere, it's really a great spot for sunset, and we couldn't miss it. We took the short hike out to the base of the Three Sisters rocks and actually got to see a wild echidna while we were out there on the trail.
See ya!
The Three Sisters was beautiful with the sun going down behind it. The next couple of days were filled with us exploring more of the Blue Mountain area, the red cliffs and the deep canyons that just make it so beautiful. We took a short hike out to Minnehaha Falls and headed back out to Lincoln's Rock to take on a beautiful sunset as a family the next night. One of the other highlights for me was the Grand Canyon. I actually took an afternoon while Megan and the kids were swimming in the hotel pool and hiked the Grand Canyon loop. After hiking River Caves Canyon, I wasn't expecting the Grand Canyon to impress me that much, but I was wrong. It was so different than the River Caves Canyon. I also had a very Jurassic Park type feel while I was there, jumping back and forth over the streams that were flowing through and the dense fern cover. There was tons of ferns in there. I hiked through there and there were so many offshoot canyons and side slot canyons that were so deep and slim that you really couldn't even see down into them. I went up into one to try to go deeper into it, but the water was pretty deep there and I didn't want to go swimming. It was pretty cool. Because of the way the canyons are winding, if you're up above them, you can't really see down into it. And if you're down at the end of it, you can't even see up into it the whole way. And so, just a really unique place with tons of diversity in there. The Blue Mountains National Park was really one of the main reasons I wanted to leave Sydney and explore more of the New South Wales area. I'm sure there's tons of stuff there that we can see and spend more time there, but the next leg of the trip was up, and we had to drop down towards the coast for some beach time and to see what different things we could see along the way. Alright, so the Great Dividing Range is the ridge that runs along parallel to the east coast of Australia. And so as we drove west to the Blue Mountains, then we drove south towards the coast, but we were right there along the edge of the range the whole way. So there were tons of unique places, lots of waterfalls that we explored, like Fitzroy Falls and Belmore Falls. We drove through Kangaroo Valley, Actually didn't see any kangaroos there, but we found a great Airbnb in the town of Nowra. I'd also seen that there were some pretty great and easy to get to tide pools near Kiama at Bushrangers Bay. So this place was really a hidden gem. Bushrangers Bay is where a lot of scuba diving happens, but you park there and you go the other direction. So we were going opposite of all the traffic that was there. And so it ended up being just us and one other family down there, and they were super surprised when we showed up. They're like, "How did you know about this place?" The tide was at a perfect level, and they're great spots to jump off the rocks into the pools and swim around and everything. It was a really cool find.
Just before I got over there.
Yeah. All right, so it was Easter Sunday, so we made sure to find a great local church to worship with in Nowra, just a little ways from our Airbnb. So after our morning at church, we took Easter afternoon to spend at the beach at Cathedral Rocks. This place has tons of cool rock formations, and it was a great spot for me to explore the caves and the rock formations while Megan and the kids spent time in the sand, which I'm not too big a fan of. That evening, we went over to Jervis Bay at Hyams Beach. So Hyams Beach is like one of the white sand areas there in Australia. It reminded me a lot of the Gulf Coast of Florida. It was much different than most of the sand that we'd been in so far. Cruz, what you doing? All right, so it's finally winding down. This full family 6-week adventure has one more stop in Sydney. I was able to use some credit card benefits and get a really great deal on 2 rooms at the Intercontinental Hotel right behind the Opera House. We had 2 amazing rooms with early check-in and late check-out. Credits to use at the hotel while we were there that we were able to use for a super nice dinner for the whole family, way nicer than we would have paid actual money on. And the rooms were great. It also included an expansive breakfast buffet. It also included a really expansive breakfast buffet. I mean, multiple rooms of buffet. It was by far the best hotel stay our family's ever had. With the benefit from Megan's American Express Platinum card, we were able to book these 2 rooms for $244 total, and it included all those perks: breakfast, dinner, early check-in, late check-out. It was really a major win, using the credit card game to our advantage once more on this trip. Sydney is really a beautiful city. We had parts of our last 2 days there, but spent most of it right there around the hotel, the Botanical Gardens, the Bay Bridge, and the Opera House. I feel like I've seen the Opera House a million times on TV and in different media sources in many different ways, but actually seeing it in person, it's a really beautiful spot. It's a beautiful structure, has tons of cool details. They're really hard to tell at a distance unless you're standing under it. I was out for sunrise and sunset on the harbor, and it's easy to see why the Opera House is such an iconic landmark for Sydney and even the whole country of Australia. So this massive trip has finally come to an end, sort of. After planning this whole trip, I had an opportunity to go work on a project in Thailand that we had started in 23. And so instead of coming home, Gray and I actually headed to Thailand by way of Singapore, Malaysia, and I've made videos about both of those amazing places. If you want to check those out, they're on this channel. So once we got to Sydney Airport, we split the family up. Megan and the 3 younger kids headed on a long flight home back to Atlanta across the Pacific, and Gray and I headed to Singapore. We had spent 38 days on the other side of the world, an amazing trip. I don't want to say it was a once-in-a-lifetime trip because I hope to go back, but in reality, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that we'll never be able to repeat this experience again. We got to see so many great places, visit with family, and see God at work in faraway lands. What an amazing blessing this adventure was for our family. So a key factor in us even being able to attempt this kind of trip was the use of credit card points and miles and frequent flyer programs. Our bookable things, so like flights, car rentals, and hotels, we spent a total of $9,800. That sounds like a lot, but we spent 6 weeks with 6 people overseas. The biggest chunk of that $9,800 was actually on the flights to and from PNG, and I wasn't able to use any kind of points and miles on those. So one example of a huge redemption that I was able to make were our tickets across the Pacific, so our flights from Atlanta to New Zealand and then from Sydney home. The cash price for those tickets would have been in the $10,000 to $14,000 range, but I was able to transfer my Chase Ultimate Rewards points to United and book those flights for around $600. I just had to pay the taxes. So out of pocket, $600 for $10,000 to $14,000 worth of flights. So obviously I love to travel and I love to take the family as much as I can, but the cost of a family of 6 to fly is usually pretty high. So the use of points and miles has really opened up the door for us to even be able to afford and make some of these trips possible.